Hello, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Addicts Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2. My guest today is supposed to be Tony Rathman, but he is not here yet. But we got some videos to watch, so we'll go ahead and watch these videos, and hopefully he will join us while the videos are on. So let's watch these videos on the static com.
Time what? Well, I can hear you when you whisper, you know that, right? Spirits, if you're not familiar with this device is called Staticom. If you heard me say Staticom. That's better.
Now, can you say Staticom for me, please?
Alright, Spirits, if you don't want to say Staticom, let's play another game. What am I holding in my hand? Glasses, thank you. Thank you very much. How about pineapple? Can you say pineapple? Oh, perfect, thank you. How come you can't say Staticom like that?
It's one word.
It's one word, Staticom. Have you not been able to talk to humans before? If you can hear me, Spirits, say elephant.
Do you know Tony?
It's me. If we use this device to help cold cases, will you answer the question? Yeah, sure. You bet. Thank you.
That will help.
That'll help a lot.
Marcello, can you see us?
Yes.
Thank you. Marcello, you started this method. It's working. Can you please try to communicate with us?
Speaker.
Who are you trying to find? You're nervous? What?
Right there.
Yeah. Are you trying to send us a message?
Roger. Roger meaning yes or Roger meaning Roger?
Are you talking about Roger Martin?
Yes, Martin.
Can you say Tony? Did you just say Rathman? Yep. So you know who I am. Can I know who you are? Yes, sir. Thank you. Who am I speaking to?
Rathman, I heard you say Rathman. Yes. What did you want to say to Roger? It's Tony. Spirits, can you hear me? Yes, okay. That was a loud voice that just answered. What's your name? That's a strange name. How many spirits are here with us right now? A lot? A lot, yeah, that's what I thought you said. Because there's so many of you, is that why all the background chatter? They're talking? Do you have any messages for us? Rathman, I heard that. Spirit, Cherie isn't getting sick, is she? Is Cherie getting sick, Spirits? Yes. What should she take? Who created Staticon?
How do you hear me speak?
All right, so those are some interesting videos. The Sanacom, they say, is the closest thing to Edison's phone of death that we've had. It's supposed to be real-time communication. I see. As you see, I'm still in here by myself. So anyway, so what does everybody think about ITC devices? I know, like some of us, like Wade, our good friend Wade, he prefers to go with no equipment. Personally, I think that ITC and other stuff can be really useful if we're properly trained and we use it properly. What do you guys think? Just type and let me know what you think, and we'll have a discussion. we'll try to go in for a few more minutes. See if Tony joins us. Otherwise, we'll probably have a very short episode today. So anyway, so what does everybody think about the Staticom? Are we looking forward to it, or do we prefer what we already got? What do you guys think? I'm going to play the video that I like the best from the ones that we have, just to see what everybody thinks. So this is the one that gets my attention the most because it actually puts on there that it's the closest thing we've had to Edison's phone of death. Here we go. Ready?
The time what? Well, I can hear you when you whisper, you know that, right? Spirits, if you're not familiar with this device is called Staticom. If you heard me say Staticom. That's better.
Now, can you say staticom for me, please?
Alright, Spirits, if you don't want to say Staticom, let's play another game. What am I holding in my hand? Glasses, thank you. Thank you very much. How about pineapple? Can you say pineapple? Oh, perfect, thank you. How come you can't say Staticom like that?
It's one word.
It's one word, Staticom. Have you not been able to talk to humans before? If you can hear me, Spirits, say elephant.
Do you know Tony?
It's me. If we use this device to help cold cases, will you answer the question? Yeah, sure. You bet. Thank you.
That will help.
That'll help a lot.
Okay, I think what I like best about that video and what gets my interest on that video is it seems like an intelligent conversation. It's actually responding to the questions. Like when Tony says, "We can hear you when you whisper," and it says, "Us too." So it's not just random stuff. So that gives it some credibility. I'd really like to talk to Tony about it, but I'm still here alone, so don't really know what's going on there. But so you guys out there, you want to say hi and give me your thoughts on the Staticom or ask a question? Let's keep the podcast going at least for a few more minutes. But so there's a lot been going on in the paranormal field. We've had a lot of drama lately, but there's been a movement lately by some people, and I'm glad to be the people included that, to move away from the drama and move to the positively. I had a friend of mine say a couple years ago that the paranormal field is that para-unity is dead. Maybe it is. The question you really got to ask, though, was there ever really para-unity, or was it just a illusion? I get asked all the time what the big difference is in the field now and 33 years ago when I first got into it. And, I always give the same answer. The thing, when I first got into it, the paranormal field was about the paranormal field. It was about helping each other, making the field better, leaving the field better than it was when you got into it, and growing together. And, somewhere along the lines, we lost that. So, it's time to get it back. I mean, it really is. Time to get rid of the drama, time to get rid of the hate, time to get rid of people thinking they're celebrities. If you're in the field for the right reason, it's not about status. So I just heard from Tony. He said he will be on in 2 minutes. So I am going to show a couple of these videos real fast. So everybody stay tuned, please. Ready? Here we go. 5, 4.
Marcello, can you see us?
Speaker.
Who are you trying to find? You're nervous. What?
Right there.
Yeah. Are you trying to send us a message?
Roger. Roger meaning yes, or Roger meaning Roger?
Are you talking about Roger Martin?
Yes, Martin.
Can you?
Spirit, Cherie isn't getting sick, is she? Is Cherie getting sick, Spirit? Yes. What should she take? Who created Staticom? Time what? I can hear you when you whisper, you know that, right? Spirits, if you're not familiar with this device is called Staticom. If you heard me say Staticom. That's that's better.
Now can you stay statical for me, please?
All right, Squares. If you don't want to stay Staticom, let's play another game. What am I holding in my hand? Glasses. Thank you. Thank you very much. How about pineapple? Can you say pineapple? Oh, perfect. Thank you. How come you can't say Staticom like that?
It's one word.
It's one word, Staticom. Have you not been able to talk to humans before? If you can hear me, spirits, say elephant.
Do you know Tony?
Hello there, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself? Sorry about that. I think you gave me the wrong time.
It's all good. All good. I just showed all the videos, a couple of them twice, but that's okay. So let's just start over again, and just I always start my podcast by letting the guests introduce themselves. Tony, so just introduce yourself to everybody, and then we'll get going.
Sure. My name is Tony Rathman. I'm an ITC researcher or instrumental transcommunication researcher. I've been involved in the paranormal for about coming up on 15 years. Was fascinated by my first EVP and never let audio go from day one. Went from EVP to spirit boxes. My wife and I built our own personal spirit boxes for research for 12 years. Then we discovered something called direct radio voice through some past counterparts. We turned that into Staticom, Staticom 1, Staticom 2.0, and now today, Staticom 3.0.
Okay, and everybody says that this is the closest thing that we've had to Edison's phone of death, or phone to death, whatever you want to call it. So, to me, it's just amazing because it's like real time. Like with spirit boxes and other things, sometimes there seems to be a delay, and this for the videos and everything, it's real time, and all the answers that we saw, they seem to be actual answers to the question, actually appropriate, not just random stuff like you get sometimes with other devices. So
that is correct. There is no radio involved in this whatsoever. There is no word banks, no AI, no nothing of that manner. It uses nothing but broadband white noise. The broadband white noise is filtered. There are no mics. There is no way to interpret any signal, not radio, not satellite, not cell phones, nothing. It is a closed system. It cannot be affected by any outside audio. Yet when we put in broadband live white noise, filter it, we get responses with both clarity, intelligence, and with timing and relevance to the questions we've asked.
And that's important, like you said, you've eliminated like the radio waves and all that stuff. And that's important to eliminate anything that can give you a false positive. Take like the pod. I mean, we can't say REM pod anymore because it's registered trademark. But take like the pod. With the REM pod, the antenna is basically the weak link. So so when you eliminate the radio waves and radio signals from a communication device, that makes it that much more trustworthy. I think you understand what I'm trying to say here anyway. So
yeah, I do. White noise contains no audible data whatsoever. There's no words, there's no sentences, there's no even subsounds of a vocal. So technically, because that's the only input source, those vocals shouldn't be there. But we believe they are coming from a physics principle called stochastic resonance. And what that means is that white noise has a spectral frequency of 1, meaning that every sound the human ear can hear from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz has a spectral frequency of 1. They're all at the same level. When a spirit speaks, they'll overlap a couple of those frequencies, and then stochastic resonance plays its part by elevating that voice above the white noise layer. Then we cut the white noise layer off, leaving nothing but the voice.
So let me ask you a question, not dealing with the Staticom, and then we'll come back to the Staticom. So you used to consider yourself a skeptic, and now obviously you're a believer, if that's the term you want to use. So sometimes these terms I worry about, like me, for example, when I go in a location, I won't ever say a place is haunted, because to me that's like a negative. People look at that negatively. So I like to use the term active, or So anyway, so sometimes the terminology, I think we lose stuff. But you used to be a skeptic, and now you're a researcher. What caused you to change? What was your wow moment, or however you want to put it?
Well, 15 years ago, on Valentine's Day, so 15 years today, my wife said, I want to do something different. Normally we'd go to a hotel, hang out by the pool, have drinks. She goes, no, I want to do something different. I said, okay, what do you want to do? She goes, I want to go ghost hunting. And I was like, oh my God. Because I didn't believe any of it. My father was a physics instructor. Every question I asked as a kid got scientific answers. And, when the TV shows started coming out, she said, oh, you got to watch this. You got to watch this. I couldn't sit 2 minutes. I'm like, this isn't real. This is entertainment only. None of this is real. Well, so I had two choices. I could either take her ghost hunting or have her mad at me until next Valentine's Day. So obviously I took her, bought her, I think, a digital recorder, night vision camera, and an EMF meter. So we went for the weekend. I played along, make her happy. She had fun. I figured, okay, this is over. But when she got home and started going through the pictures, the video, and the audio recordings, there was stuff in the pictures, there was stuff in the videos that was not there when we took it. But the most fascinating part to me was, even on questions I asked, we had answers, audio answers with timing and relevance to the question that we asked. And I was blown away. For months, I tried to debunk it, couldn't do it. Finally, I said, let's go back. Maybe there was a vent somewhere we weren't aware of that voices were coming through. So we went back, tried to figure it out, couldn't figure it out, came home with even more evidence. So that's how it started, just kept going, been going that way for 15 years now.
That's cool. Yeah. I like, I always find it interesting. You said, you cover a science background, and I've been investigating really investigating for 33 years. Ever since I turned 18, I actually investigated before then. I have the ability, the gift. I look at it as a gift nowadays. As a kid, I really didn't, but now, I have the gift where I can communicate with the spirits. So I've pretty much all my life. I was born, raised, and still live in not only the Bible Belt. I live in the heart of the Bible Belt. So I had a lot of people tell me that that I must worship the devil, blah blah blah. Anyway, so when I investigate now, I have all the gadgets. Any gadget I can get, I have. And I still use my abilities. Don't get me wrong, but especially if it's a residential investigation, I find it a lot easier to go to that homeowner and be like, I captured this voice, I captured this image. It's a lot easier to go to the homeowner with what I captured than to go to the homeowner and be like, well, this is what I feel. I was able to communicate, but having that scientific evidence, I know it's a pseudoscience, but there is scientific in it now. So having that scientific evidence, it just makes it a lot easier to go to the homeowner with that.
Yeah, I mean, science itself isn't pseudo. I mean, people consider parapsychology to be a pseudoscience, which absolutely fascinates me because it's more of a, even parapsychology is a social science, not a para or a pseudoscience. But that's what people call it because they're thinking you're changing the rules. Well, everything we developed with Staticom follows the rules of science, because you'll find a lot of investigators will start by saying, you know, science can't explain this. Spirits just know how to do that. Science will never be able to explain this because that's not how they operate. But then they'll turn around and say, well, I caught this piece of evidence and look, the scientific principle says energy can't be created or destroyed, so this has got to be factual. Well, you can't dismiss science in one statement, throw it out the window, and then use it as your key witness in your next statement. It doesn't work that way. It either follows it or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then you have to explain why. But that was one of the principles when developing Staticom, that we wanted to make sure we weren't creating alternate routes or paths of our explanation. We tried to keep it as straight on path, straight line as possible from what was happening to how we believed it was happening. And like I said, we believe that process is occurring through stochastic resonance. That's how we're hearing the voices. Stochastic resonance is used in all sorts of different devices, from medical devices to biological devices to all sorts of things. But stochastic resonance takes a signal that's too weak to be detected either by human senses or by a sensor, and it elevates it to a point where it can be detected. And that's the process we're using to bring these voices out.
It's fascinating. And, you know, I love getting the technology specifications behind everything. You know, I had Rob Rakowski on the show last season, you know, the guy behind Ghost Tech. He's actually a good friend, you know, and that's what I liked about him on the show. Just like you know, he explained how it works, how he came up with it. I mean, I'm not an engineer, I'm not on his level, but I mean, he broke it down where I could understand the science behind it, you know, because one thing I tell people all the time, what you have to realize for the most part, aside from the, you know, like the Staticom, and, you know, there's a few exceptions, the Staticom, the Apple box, you know, those things were specifically made for paranormal investigating. But, you know, most of your things, whether it's your SLS or EMF reader, right, K2, none of that was specifically designed for the paranormal field. Somebody smarter than me, which that doesn't take much, but somebody smarter than me was like, well, I think this will help in the paranormal field. So, you know, and yes and no. I mean, I'm not a, you know, so my personal rule on equipment is, so a little bit of background on me. We already know I've been investigating since 1992. So my team, I did have to take 3 years off because I had brain and spine surgery. So I've been back in it for 4 years now. So anyway, my team I have now, we actually have 17 members, which is a large team. Sometimes it's like babysitting, Tony. Other times it's useful. But so whenever I add a piece of equipment to my toolkit, that's what I call it. Matter of fact, one of my cases that I carry my equipment in is actually one of the rolling wheel toolkits like you buy at Lowe's. So yeah. So anyway, when something goes into my toolkit, I test it for 4 investigations before I make a call whether it's going to be useful or not. And I really like it if I can get like double confirmation. So for instance, one of my favorite pieces of equipment I have right now is the Paratech VM5. Do you know what the Paratech VM5 is?
I do.
So that's a gold store for you, Tony. So anyway, so to me, it's a lot more reliable than your Ovilus or your Periscript. I've used both of them, but especially the Ovilus, which of course is like $600 to begin with. So that's the first strike against it. The second strike against it is it has a word bank, and you'll get all kinds of random words that have nothing to do with the investigation.
Right.
The Periscript is basically the same thing. I don't think it's as bad. I would have a Periscript before I would have a novelist, and a Periscript ain't cheap. This like $400. So,
Right.
and I mean a Paratech wasn't cheap when they came out. Of course, you can't get it anymore because it was limited production. So I actually bought mine from Steve Gonzalez. He was downgrading his collection, his inventory, and I bought it from him for $200. So anyway, but anyway, I tested it with my Spirit Box, side by side, Spirit Box, Paratech, and voice recorder, and they complemented each other, and so that's why it's in my toolkit. The best piece of evidence I got when I was first testing it, we was investigating the old stone jail down here in Kentucky, and of course, so when you investigate the old stone jail, there's also a museum right across, and you investigate both of them. So we was actually on the museum part of the investigation right now, and of course, it was dark, no lights, blah blah blah, your usual setup. Well, the part of the museum we was at was where all the Ike for president and all that stuff was, all the presidential banners. And my question was, can you tell me where at? And the exact word I got was election. So I mean, you can't dismiss that. So, but my point is, the point to all that was, you have to know your equipment. You have to know the force positive it gives. You have to know how it reacts to different environments. You have to know your equipment before you can properly use it.
That's correct.
So for my birthday this year, me and part of my team, we made a 7-hour trip to the Moreau House. And the Moreau House, I don't know if you've ever been, but it's an interesting place to begin with. So the whole time we're there, my spider senses, if that's what the term you want to use, was going off. Like we already know, I have the gift. So the whole time we were there, as soon as I stepped through the gate, I felt like somebody was watching me that didn't want me there. So we go about our investigation, and I do a couple of different lives. I finally make it down to the basement because the basement's where everybody says the evil entity resides or whatever. So I get down there, and what's interesting to begin with is we was in this one room. It's the room off of the bedroom with the 2 twin beds. What's interesting, I have no idea what this room really is. It's kind of like maybe a family room. It's got the antique couch in it. But what drew me to this room when I was doing the walkthrough is there is a pulpit there. I'm not talking about just a stand. I'm talking about a full pulpit with a hymnal and a Bible on it. I'm like, why do we have a pulpit inside the building? But anyway, so we make it down to the basement. And like I said, this was my birthday investigation. The investigation actually started on January 18th. January 19th is actually my birthday. So at midnight, we're in the basement and we decided to go live because it's my birthday. So I'm doing my usual thing. And my rule is, and that's why I think the Staticom is going to be such a useful tool to me when it's available. I'm definitely going to get one because my thing is you have to make the spirits trust you. It's all about communication. So when I go in, I talk to the spirits like I'm talking to you. I'm like, I explain to them what my equipment is, because obviously if they're from the 1800s or 1920, even 1950, they have no idea what a Paratech is. I mean, they probably don't even know what a flashlight is. So, I'm explaining to them, I'm asking permission to communicate with them, so forth and so on. So we get down there, and there's one chair down there, like in this cubby hole in the basement. So as soon as I get in this cubby hole, the temperature of the room drops. I mean, I get it's But me being me, I sat in the chair and I started asking questions, and almost immediately, we started getting stuff. And one thing we got, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it because I was asking the questions, but my one of my team leads couldn't make it with us, so he was watching the live at home, and in the middle of this interaction with the spirit in the basement, there was a growl. And now that I've reviewed the evidence and have the video, going back, I heard the growl. I didn't hear it live, but anyway. But my point is, we're doing these questions, and I asked him. I asked pretty much the same questions we asked everybody. I asked them if they died on the property, and their answer was yes. So I was using the Apple box. I was using the Apple box and the Paratech, plus the video camera, plus the voice recorder. So while I'm doing the interview, my team lead Jill, she had the video camera recording me, and then I had the Apple box in front of me and the Paratech in my hand, because I don't like that handle that they gave me, so I just carried it in my hand. So anyway, so I'm carrying on this conversation, and I'm like, so I asked it if it died on the property, and it said yes. So then I asked it if it died in the house, because that's a significant difference, because because if it died on the property, you're looking at maybe like a Native American burial ground, or there's a lot of things, a battle during the Civil War, lots of things. But if they died in the house, that's a little bit more specific. So anyway, I asked it if it died in the house, and it said yes. So I asked it if it was murdered, because that's different too, and it said yes. So I asked it. I said, how was you murdered? Were you killed by a gun? Were you shot? And it said no. I was like, okay. So I was like, okay. Were you physically killed? Were you strangled? Were you hung? And it said no again. Well, at this point, I'm a little bit confused, because there ain't that many more ways. So that's exactly what I said to it. I said, okay. I paused for a minute, and I was like, okay. So I'm a bit confused now. This is exactly what I said. I was like, I'm a bit confused. I'm like, so you said you were murdered? And it said yes again. I'm like, but you wasn't physically murdered, or you wasn't shot? It said yes. And I was like, so tell me how you were murdered. And I got fire. That's exactly what it said, was fire. And anybody that knows the history of the Monroe House, there was 5 fires on that location. So that's very probable. So it was just kind of one of those moments. It was like kind of like a wow moment.
Very cool. Very cool.
So, but what my point to that is, that's knowing your equipment, because my newest team member, we just promoted him from being in training. He was in training to this investigation, and it was the first investigation where he made actual investigator. So he actually had a Periscript, and we were trying to use. We thought that the Paratech and the Periscript might complement each other, but the Periscript was actually giving random wood bank answers. So we actually ended up shutting it off and just going with the Apple box and the Paratech. Now, with that being said, if I would have had time to shrink the Paratech, change the settings and stuff. I mean, the Periscript. If I would have had time to change the settings, it may be useful. But I'm not doing that in the middle of an investigation at the row house.
Right. Yeah, your time gets limited. That's one of the major downfalls to 90% of the equipment used in the paranormal, is that none of it was designed for it. None of it can prove anything. That was what we looked at when we were developing Staticom. Was, first of all, like, if you go do an EVP session, you have your recorder, you put it down, you ask your questions, but then you may listen to a little bit of it, but you usually end up taking it home, loading it to your computer. You end up trying to denoise it, maybe amplify it, sometimes speed it up, sometimes slow it down. But the point of that, even though EVP is a fascinating phenomena, and it works, we did it for years and years and still do it. But there's always that jaw-dropping moment when you get an EVP, which is Class A, and you can hear exactly what's being said. But the point is that by the time you take it home and do all that through your computer, the conversation's pretty much over because you're not in the location anymore. You're now at home. Staticom does everything we just talked about, clearing it up, slowing it down, filtering it, all live. So you don't have to mess with any of that. It's all done automatically. The slowing down of the light noise is huge because spirits speak very fast, and without slowing it down, you miss half the conversation. So this allows the human senses and the clarity of the vocals to be clear enough that we can play it, or we can run the method in a room full of people, and 90% or more will hear the exact same thing. Same response.
And like you said, it's very important, the slowing it down, like you said, because spirits do speak faster and on a different plane or whatever terminology. That's the reason a lot of times when you're listening to EVP or anything, you'll hear, even on TV, you'll hear an investigator be like, well, I heard something, but it wasn't that. I couldn't understand it. It's because they're speaking so fast, because they're speaking on their level. They're not on their plane. They're not speaking, So slowing it down is very important. And, and to me, something that I think makes the Staticom a very, very variable is it does it, like you said, it does it right there. So, you're always going to have the doubters, the haters, the whatever. They'll be like, if I took my EVPs home and slowed it down, filtered it, they're going to be like, well, you manipulated it. The Staticom doing it. I know, but they're out there. They're out there.
That's fine. All I got to do is come here and run live. It can't be manipulated. We can't control what's coming out.
Exactly.
It responds with timing and relevance to the questions asked. So, you know what? You're never going to convince everybody. And we gave up on that probably year one of our 15 years because I'm not looking to prove it to them. I started out looking to prove it to myself. We did that. Then we moved on to figure out how we could clear the communication, make it better, 12 years of spirit boxes. Then we moved on to DRV, and there's another 3.5 there. And now we've got Staticom 3.0, which is, like I said, probably the closest thing to Thomas Edison's idea of a phone to the dead. Because if it can't pick up any signals, the only thing that can be communicating, because when I speak, I'm not broadcasting my voice, and I'm speaking in my normal tone of voice. We don't even use a mic. So if I'm creating vocal waves, those are going to travel maybe, 100 feet, 200 feet before they dissipate in the atmosphere. So how are they hearing me speak? That's what we want to know. And I don't know if you played it already, but I think there's a clip in there from Staticom 2.0. When I asked that question, how do you hear me speak? They actually answered. Yeah,
we played it. Yeah. So that's what fascinates me because, like I said, it's like, like you said, to me, the best pieces of equipment we get are made by fellow investigators or researchers, whatever term you want to use. That's the reason that's the reason I'm looking so forward to having a Staticom. That's why I have, the Epa box, because it was made by Rob, who's he's an investigator. Then I got several pieces of equipment from Elite Paranormal Society because they're investigators. They're not like some of these companies that are just trying to make money. They understand the mission, if that's the term you want to use. There's so much equipment out there. Even some of the equipment that have been around so long, you have to question. Like, I may step on some toes here, and if I do, I really don't care because I've been doing this a long time. I have a lot of experience. I'm not saying I'm an expert, blah blah blah, or whatever, but I've been doing this a while. I'm not a celebrity. I don't want to be a celebrity, but I'm an investigator. That's what I am. So anyway, even take a K2 meter. a K2 meter can be set off by anything. Your cell phone can set off a K2 meter. In my meetings, we have so with my team, we discussed my team's a large team. One requirement to be on my team, you can't just say, "Kid, I'm going to be on your team." That doesn't work. So one requirement is we have monthly meetings. We have monthly team meetings, and everybody has to come to the meeting. And one aspect of the team meeting, we have a training session. So we're trained on whatever piece of equipment. If I have a new piece of equipment, that's what we're trained on. So like last meeting, our training session was on the Apple box. But anyway, so one meeting we trained on the K2 meter because I wanted to show everybody how the cell phone affected a K2 meter. So that just goes back to you have to know your equipment. I'm not saying that a K2 meter is not a useful tool, but I'm saying in 33 years of investigating, I've only had one experience with a K2 meter where I considered it useful enough that I put it in my video and my report, whatever you want to put. So, and then then the next popular piece of equipment we got now is SLS. So the SLS obviously was a Kinect's video game system, and so it wasn't even a good video game system. It was a sucky video game system. But the story goes that somebody discovered that the camera was picking up people that wasn't there. So somebody smarter than me again was like, "Oh wow, we could use this in the paranormal field." Yes and no. So the main problem with the SLS, I've got some good stuff for the SLS. So I'm not an anti-SLS person, but you have to use it properly, just like anything else. So the first mistake that most people make with SLS is they carry it around with them. SLS is not designed to be carried around.
Stationary.
They do that because that's what they see on TV. They see that on TV. Because that's what the producers want because it makes good TV. But like you said, it's designed to be stationary. So that's the first thing. The second thing is just like this is the Staticom 3, so obviously it's improved as you went on. So the SLS version 1 was so sensitive. If that's the term you want to use, it picked up anything. Like I literally saw it pick up a pile of clothes as a human figure. So now the 1.5, I don't know why it's 1.5 and not 2, Tony, but the 1.5 is a lot better. It's not quite as sensitive. So, but my point is just like your point that you made before I went on this rant is most equipment is not made for this. So if you're going to use it, you have to know how to use it, because not that we care about the people, the haters or whatever, because like you said, they're not going to believe no matter what. We could capture a ghost. We could be like the Ghostbusters, and we could have a ghost in the trap, and they still wouldn't believe. So we're not worried about them. But as long as you're misusing equipment, you're always going to give people more area to doubt the field, And my goal is I want to leave this field better than it was when I got into it. I want to be part of the positive, not the negative, So yes, I'm all about. That's the reason I'm so excited about the Staticom. I can't wait to have it because it's going to make my investigation so much easier. Like you said, it's live. It slows it down, all that stuff. So I'm not going to have to worry about going home and reviewing it because it is it for me right there. So I'm excited. So
very cool, very cool. Yeah, there were many things that were attempted to be tackled. The first one being, anything that uses a radio. It's really hard for somebody to convince somebody else that you're speaking to the dead when your device is made to take RF waves in the atmosphere and convert them to speech or music. How are you supposed to determine reception from deception? Was it radio? Was this? It's very hard to do. I mean, after years of creating them, yeah, we could identify which is which. But we also noticed that the radio signal actually stopped the spirit communication. The whole theory behind a spirit box was that spirits would take the fragments of audio and rearrange it into their own sentence. Okay, first of all, they would have to do that at the speed of light. Second of all, every syllable they needed would need to be available at that moment in time for them to do that. But what we noticed after 12 years of building spirit boxes was that the RF signal wasn't needed at all. In fact, that's what was stopping them from continuing their communication. When it would hit a radio station, the white noise was gone and spirits just got cut off. That's why the majority of the responses from a spirit box are either short, maybe a word or two, and very rarely you'll get a sentence, but that doesn't happen often. Staticom 3.0 will allow for them to speak until they don't want to speak anymore.
And that's a good point. I never thought about it until you said it, and then in the conversation, and then I started playing in my mind. And every time I used the spirit box, like when it was going through and it was just static, that's when I got the communication. Once you hit like a radio station, there was no communication. And then of course you're going to have the haters, like you said. Well, how are you going to determine if it's a ghost or if it's Garth Brooks singing "Friends in Low Places"? First of all, I'm not an idiot. I know, I've been doing this a long time. I know the difference. That's just like the old argument about orb. I've been doing this a long time, Tony. I know the difference between a piece of dust and something on my camera. You know what I'm saying? I'm not an idiot. And so, but I mean, like you said, the radio wave stops the white noise. So here's a question that we've, it's been debated for a long time, and I've actually asked this question a lot on my podcast. So since we are talking about communication, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time when we're communicating with a spirit, it's in English. Not all the time. I've spoke with spirits in German and other languages, but most of the time it's in English. Why do you think that is? I have my theory. Do you want to hear my theory, or do you want to give me your theory first?
I'll give you mine first. The real simple answer is they're going to communicate to you in the language that you know. If you know more than one, like my wife speaks Tagalog, Japanese, English, and we've gotten EVPs in all of them. The communication to her will vary based on her language. When we were doing Staticom sessions, we had a gentleman come up because we let the public ask their own questions to get their own answer. He asked his question in his Native American language. None of us knew what he asked, but we just waited to see what happened. All of a sudden, his jaw dropped, his eyes got wide, and I said, "Did you get your answer?" He said, "Not only did I get it, but I got it in my Native American language." But we've turned it on and we've heard them speaking in a different language. And I said, "That's not English. What language are you speaking?" And they're like, "Turkish." Well, we took the recording to somebody who spoke Turkish and they said, "Yep," and told us what they were saying. So the point when you're looking at developing something, like when we develop Staticom, and then you start to get results, you have to look at those results, and then you have to take about 100 steps back and take a look at what you believe reality to be. And that's what we had to do, because the 3D scientific physicalism idea of that the 3D world exists, it does exist, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't exist necessarily how we perceive it. And the reason being is because all of life is subjective. It's only subjective to me. I can't see life through your eyes or you through mine. And you're limited to 5 senses which are limited. Your sight's visible light only. Your hearing's 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Both sight and sound have multiple layers of frequency above or below what we can see, hear, or experience, which means there's a whole nother world dimension out there that our human body doesn't even allow us to experience. So that's why we believe that, there's a universal consciousness of which we're all part of. When we're in human form, we're a substrate of that universal, and we return to it after this life is over. Which, in regards to the question you said, well, they're not going to know what a recorder is or what this device is. Well, if they have shared consciousness, one mind, they actually would know. In fact, we had somebody call out an ovulus and even use the term when nobody investigating even said what it was, and the voice came through clear as can be, ovulus. So, there's a million versions of what could be. It's when you're doing research to try to figure out, like I said, that straightest path to what fits the scenario. And that's what we try to do.
I pretty well agree with you. I mean, that's pretty well my take. They're going to speak to us in the language we know, because they're trying to communicate with us. So obviously they want us to understand. The time that the instance that I was talking about, where they spoke German to me, there was this location that we investigated. We're one of only 2 teams to ever investigate it. It was a seed mill, but it was a seed mill that was built by World War II POWs for Portugal. So German was Nazi German was their language at the time. So what's cool about this building is it's untouched. They had modified it from the original, so it's still got the tunnels in it where they transported the POWs back and forth. When we first walked into it, the first thing I said to my team was, I wonder how much asbestos we're going to breathe, because it was untouched. The old metal staircases, and it's 4 stories. So you're talking about, and so we were down in the basement, and so you have to worry about whether it's safe for you to be at places sometimes. And it got to the point in the tunnel that not really because of the spirits, but because of the conditions of the environmental conditions that we had to stop investigating. But yeah, they actually used. It was actually speaking to us in German, and I obviously don't speak German, so we was actually had to use the Google Translate app to communicate with them. So yeah. Let's talk about we've both kind of hinted about it, the TV shows and all that stuff. So one question I always like to ask all my guests is, how do you think the para-pop culture, that's my word, para-pop culture, how do you think the para-pop culture has affected the field, both negatively and positively?
Well, I think positively it affected it because it allowed people to discuss it openly. It allowed them to have conversations that, 20 years ago people wouldn't have had because they were afraid they'd get locked in a padded white room and never heard from again. So, it did a lot of good things as far as allowing people to discuss it. The negatives are, and it's the same thing with what Staticom is based on, which was direct radio voice. People don't do a lot of actual research. I don't even care if it's in their title. If it says researcher, chances are they haven't really done research. Going out to investigate, can you consider that research? At times, but real research is a whole different level of an understanding what's going on and trying to figure out answers. But people's research in the pop culture, as you call it, mimic what they see on TV. And the spirit box is what was shown, not direct radio voice, which direct radio voice was used for 35 or 40 years by a gentleman named Marcello Bacci, and he was actually tested by scientists, and they couldn't explain how these voices were coming through. So that's the device that we modeled. That's the device that has now become Staticom, and now Staticom 3.0. But DRV, most people didn't even know what it was because it wasn't shown on television shows. All they knew when they heard the word ITC or instrumental transcommunication was a spirit box. Well, there's more to it than that. And that's what we also tried to show in developing what we developed with Staticom.
So Laura asked what parapop culture is. So parapop culture is the word that I've coined, or whatever. So it's my word. So parapop culture is your TV shows, especially your YouTube videos. The people who want to be celebrities and not real researchers. And some of the people on TV, at least started out as real researchers. What you have to realize, I know you realize it, Tony. So I just say that because I don't want you to think I'm trying to talk down to you. Definitely not. If anything, you should be talking down to me because I'm not at your level. But anyway,
that's not true.
but anyway, but I mean, I have respect for you, and I hope you have respect for me.
Of course,
that's what it's really about. But anyway, so parapop culture. So let's take TAPS for example. When TAPS started, they're the ones who really started the whole wave of shows. And when they started, they did a lot more research than they did on season 9 or whatever. But what we have to realize is, when Steve, I say Steve because I know Steve personally. I don't really know any of the other ones, but I know Steve. And so so when Steve's in there, when TAPS is there, they're actually on location for 3 days. We see 90 minutes on TV. We see 90 minutes of what the producers want us to see. What makes good TV. So that's what we have to. So that's parapop culture. And then you have the people on YouTube. Not all of them. There's some good YouTubers out there. But we have a lot of people on YouTube that they say demon 20 times and they get 100 more likes. So that's the thing. And so that's what parapop culture is, Laura. But see, so Sarah, Sarah explained to me when she was on the show, and I never really thought about it. Those people, as much as they get on our nerves and as much as they make things harder on us, they still serve a purpose because they're entertainers. They're not researchers, like you said, Tony. But the people that tune into those people, that's not the same people that's going to tune in to me or you. The people that tune in to me and you, they're going, they're tuning in to see what a real investigator is. The people that tune in to these people, they're just tuning in to be entertained. That's what it's all about. So
yeah, I mean, the other thing you got to remember is that any show, especially if it gets popular, is controlled 100% by the network. And the network decides what to show, what to cut, what to leave in. The network does all that. Is there any network out there that truly wants the answers and to find out about the paranormal? No, they want ratings. That's all they care about is ratings. Who's watching, how many people watching, and what's this making us? So, it was a great way to, like I said, open the doors into the paranormal, let people talk about it, let people discuss it, let people feel comfortable to go out and try it. But the information that comes across through these shows, the beginning ones started out, like you said, good. It went downhill from there. You're not getting the best examples of how to do it anymore. You're not getting the best use of what equipment is out there. And like I said, paranormal equipment has not advanced in years. There are some new motion detectors and things like that. But again, do we know that works? Do we know that, no, I mean, until it's tested. And there's nothing wrong with testing new stuff. Excuse me, one second. Sorry, I knew I was going to sneeze. There's nothing wrong with stuff. That's how we make progress in figuring out what works and what doesn't. But if your only source of information is from YouTubers or TV shows, chances are you're probably not doing it the way you should be.
Well, that's just like Laura said that she loves Zach Baggins, and I'm not one of these people that down Zach. Like, there's a lot of people that hate Zach in the field. Zach has brought some good attention to the field, and his new shows are actually quite a lot better than the old shows. But Zach is the first one to admit Zach doesn't claim to be an investigator. Zach tells you he's an actor. He admits it. He's open about it. So to me, and I'm not going on a bashing thing because it don't make any difference to me. Because like there's good things, like you said, it's opening up the communication. I don't have to go. I don't have people telling me I'm going to hell as much or that I worship the devil as much. Now I get, oh, you worship the devil. Oh, you mean. Or you're like ghost hunters. That's what I get now. So so there's a lot of good. There's some good there, but so like I don't watch the shows anymore. Used to I kind of watched them, especially at the beginning. But now I watch it and I'm like, that's not the way it really is. So I have no interest in it. For example, Aaron G. Thompson. I don't know if you know Aaron G., but he's a good friend of mine. So when we first became friends, he was going to be on my show. The sad thing is, Aaron's been investigating for 25 years, but people only know him for 28 Days Haunted. That's where everybody knows him from. Well, when he was coming on my show, I had never watched 28 Days Haunted. Never watched it. Had no plan to watch it. But as I'm sure you've noticed on my Facebook since we became friends, I actually do homework for my podcast. So I studied you. I watched all the videos you sent me. I read up on you. Next week my guest is Rich Newman. I bought 2 of his books. Read. So I do research. So Aaron G's coming on my show. So I'm like I got to binge watch 28 Days on it. So, yeah. So, and the thing is it's an interesting concept. If it was done right, it would have been good. Because what they did is they went to the 5 most haunted locations according to, Annabelle and all that. So that's where but then after that, it was more Hollywood, especially since it was on Netflix. So they didn't even have the network, So right. Yeah, so anyway, so my point is I just don't watch them. So, but I kind of watched Ghost Brothers for a couple of seasons. I don't know if you ever watched Ghost Brothers. I like Ghost Brothers because it was pretty real. They were guys with day jobs, and then after they left their day job, they went and investigated. So nothing against them, but when I stopped watching them, is one episode. They were investigating someplace, and it's making difference where, and they decided to use their phone, which I'm not downing phone apps, not at all. But they decided to use the phone as an EMF reader. A phone cannot be an EMF reader. It puts off too much EMF on its own. And the part that really killed me is their exact statement was, "This is the best EMF reader we have." I was like, so yeah, so you have so. But I mean, it's a good show, So yeah, so that's just like, and I have nothing against them, especially since they have more money than I will ever see. That's just like Sam and Cody. There's a lot of people who hate Sam and Cody. I'm not a fan because they pretty well, they pretty well everything to parent pop culture, but they're still bringing attention to it. So I have one of my friends that call them the Spice Girls of the paranormal world. So, but whatever works for them, as long as they don't bring drama to the field, it don't bother me. The only thing that bothers me about any of these people is I've been on location. I went 2 of the places I went to investigate last year. Made me sign a 5-page waiver before I can investigate. in one of the locations, the Harriman Hospital, which is a big location. It's a popular big location. They actually told me that one of the new rules that I had was because of this one group. So because of these people who yell demon all the time, they now have to view all your videos before you can post your video or your own channel to make sure you're not yelling demon or anything. So that's when I have a problem. Otherwise, let people do whatever they want to. So since I kind of mentioned it, here's my next question, Tony. What is your take on phone apps? Can a phone app be useful, or is it just entertainment?
Joke. And I'll tell you why it's a joke. There is no circuitry within a cell phone designed to do any type of research or analysis of paranormal activity. They are all listed, every single one of them, if you go to the Play Store or Google Store, as for entertainment only. There is nothing proven that says that they can do anything. The one thing I can tell you is there are a few apps that have produced results that are unexplained. Now, that would take years of research to find out maybe what happened, how that occurred. But when you have a device that has GPS, can tell where you're headed, where you're going, what direction you're going, and then spit out words from a word bank that might match a location that you happen to be heading to because GPS is telling it where you are, it's really hard to put any credibility into a device that was not meant to do anything to the paranormal. It was meant to be a communication information device. And when using an app, that's what you're getting. You're getting information that was put into it.
My phone could be a good voice recorder.
Well, voice recorder.
but so here's my take. So I'm not an app person. I mean, my team, we don't use apps. We use equipment. So obviously, our phone cannot be an EMF reader at all. So, but like you said, the phone doesn't have the sensors in it to be used as a paranormal tool. It does have, but it could, if somebody took the time and the research to put the sensors in there, because your phone is basically just a mini computer now. So
yeah, it is with limited ability, but the only two things a cell phone can do when researching the paranormal is A, videotape, and B, audio record. Those two can be very useful. Right.
No argument here, because just like some of the more expensive things, anything that's ITC has a wood bank. So to me, anything with a wood bank, I'm dismissing. You know what I'm saying? And the SLS that's on your phone, I mean, come on, it's just stick figures. I don't care what anybody says. So yeah, until somebody actually puts useful sensors on a phone, and why would you do that? I mean, so anyway, yeah. So here's my next question. This is a question I ask everybody, and this is a question that I have to ask nowadays that I hate asking. But as everybody knows, and we don't have blinders on, the paranormal field nowadays has a lot of drama. And we're not going to go into that drama because I'm not giving people a platform. I'm not giving it. But so my question basically is, Tony, why do you think, is a two-part question. Why do you think there's so much drama in the field? And what do you think we need to do to make the field a positive place to get?
Well, unfortunately, the field is filled with one problem that causes a lot of this drama, and that's the ego. In order to avoid that, paranormal's not going to be solved by any one individual. It takes the collective masses to figure out each piece of the puzzle, to be able to put it together, to figure out what that picture looks like. So protecting locations and, not allowing others to do it. And that's where the problem begins. No one person is going to figure this out on their own. And it's got to be done collectively. Share that information, be able to get other people to replicate it and say, yeah, that works. Okay, what's next step? It's got to be done as a whole, not as individuals. And that's where the problem lies.
I completely agree. I mean, for some reason, like you said, ego, people think that they can come into this field and be a celebrity. That's not what this field is about. This field we're supposed to help people. We're supposed to help each other. A good friend of mine, probably my best friend in this field, he's kind of a para celebrity. He's got the TV shows, all that stuff, but he's actually written a book on the problem, and that's the problem. Everybody and people are worried about their spot. Like they're like, well, I'm more important to you, so you can't jump me or whatever. And that's like I said earlier. I've been doing this for 33 years, Tony, and I'm good at what I do. I take pride in it, but I don't consider myself a celebrity. I don't care about my spot. I'm all about helping the new generation. I'm all about training people, and that's the way it should be. Like I said, my purpose is to leave this field better than it was when I got in it. And my friend, he actually went as far as saying that para-pop culture is dead. The question I asked him was, is para-pop culture really dead, or did it even really exist? Was it just an illusion? Because when I first got into it 33 years ago, and I'm sure when you got into it 15 years ago, it was different. The question I get asked a lot is what's the big difference since I got into it? And the big difference is now people's worried about their status, they're worried about becoming famous. Right. When I first got into it, it was actually about the field. It was about working together, and that's the big difference. So
it was about evidence. It was about being able to capture that evidence, show it to other people, share it. Now it's all about it's the wrong direction, no doubt about it.
Yep. So anyway, tell everybody what exactly is going on with the Staticom 3, when you expect to have it available. Just tell them what's the status on it.
Well, Staticom 3.0 is just over 3 weeks old, so it will not be available for quite some time. There's a lot of research left to do. There's a lot of testing. We haven't even begun the research yet because we were still making modifications. The voices started coming in during the modifications from 2.0 to 3.0. And so it's going to be a little while, but there will be live presentations of it. There'll be shows about it. There'll be explaining deeper into the information as to how it works. The original setup that we used many years ago to begin with can be acquired by a gentleman named Keith Clark. And we've had some people come back to us already. He says, well, it doesn't sound anything like yours. Well, no, it's not going to. It's the basic setup. It's not the 3.0 model, but there's so many available options for information. I mean, if we're getting voices that are responding to us, I mean, those voices can only be coming from one remaining source. If it's not radio, if it's not satellite, if it's not, when we know it's not because it doesn't have the ability to pick it up, that means it's consciousness. And if it's consciousness, that means consciousness survives death. And we know that from multiple tests in the 2.0. But there's so many avenues, from science to learning about what the afterlife is, how they live in it, how things work. And it's all based now on what information they'll actually share.
So you're going to be, you said you're going to be giving, demonstrations of it. So you're going to be traveling, like doing the paracon tours and stuff. Is that what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, everything from Paragon to Conscious Life Expos to we're also going to see how well 3.0 can do on cold cases, because 94% of the information we get from it that we can research is correct, which means to be able to get information from it that you don't know would be very helpful on something where a family is grieving about a lost loved one, may not know what happened to them. Staticon 3.0 could be a big help in getting answers to those questions.
I got a case for you down here. For real, we have this 33-year-old single mother who disappeared 4 years ago now, and like she just disappeared. I mean, she was in company of her boyfriend and her boyfriend's dad, and she just disappeared.
Disappeared?
But anyway,
terrible and sad.
Yes, it's very sad. So, Michael, I asked about the Paracons and stuff because, I mean, you don't know, but I usually do. I usually host a Paracon every year. I'm actually taking this year off because last year I ended up almost losing money because I had somebody take money from me. So I ended up breaking even. Well, I ended up making $302. So, but I should have made 3,000 anyway. But I'm coming back next year. So I will be sending you an invite if you don't mind coming to Kentucky.
Very cool. Very cool.
I got a couple of what I call rapid rounds that I like to do, if that's okay with you. The first one is we're going to discuss the different types of hauntings, and just get your opinion on those, and so we'll start out with a residual haunting. What do you think about a residual haunting?
Well, when you get into physics and the laws of physics, how does 3D matter, wood, brick, hold emotional states and then release it if they don't have any, brick, rock, water doesn't have consciousness. Science can't explain how human beings, who are also the same molecules, same atoms, same electrons, science can't even determine how we have consciousness. But yet they're saying that things like stone, trees, brick don't. So how does an item such as brick or rock hold emotion and then release it into a residual haunting? That conflicts with the laws of science. So it's got to be something else. Is that consciousness, trapped somewhere that's releasing those voices or moving objects, or is it live consciousness that's affecting it while they're there? I don't know the answer to that. I've experienced what we've believed on many investigations to be residual, but identifying, not knowing the variables under which it's reacting makes it very hard to distinguish how it's occurring.
Okay, that's actually really in-depth, good explanation. A lot better than I usually get. So that was good. So, so the thing that's interesting about residual hauntings to me is, for whatever reason, they're considered the most common. So in my years of investigating, I've actually only been able to catch, by definition anyway, one residual haunting. There's this location down here that I've actually investigated a dozen times. It's called the Hotel Metropolitan. Let me be politically correct here. It was the African American Hotel back in the day. Of course, by being politically correct, I'm not being correct to the location, but we'll be politically correct anyway. So it was the African American hotel at the time. So there's a lot of activity there, but the one of the famous or well known spirits there is Miss Jackie, Miss who is the owner. Well, what's interesting about the hotel, obviously it had a female African American owner, which wasn't common at that time. Well, she always wanted to open this hotel. Her husband was actually the one that had a little bit of money, but he would never open the hotel. He was against it. So he died, and then she used his name to open the hotel. So, but her spirit is believed to walk down the staircase. That's all she does is walk down the staircase at 11:01. I don't know why 11:01. 11:01 Central Time. So, like I said, I've investigated a lot. So I've always stopped the investigation at like 10:55 and set up all my equipment at the end of the staircase and see if we could catch it. So, so 2 years ago, we were investigating with a film crew from Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee, and so that was an interesting investigation on its own. I would not recommend that, but anyway, we set up there, and for whatever reason, that night I was able to capture what looked like somebody walking down the staircase. I mean, you actually even saw the video. You saw they couldn't move and everything. So that was my 12 times. I finally caught her. So, but yeah, so it was a good moment. I was happy. I still have it. I still have that video on my phone. That's one of my favorite videos. But so the next kind of investigation is an intelligent haunting. What do you think about an intelligent haunting?
Oh, there's a big difference between residual and intelligence. If they're intelligence, they're going to display intelligence. They're going to allow you to communicate with them. They're going to know that you're there. None of that happens with residual. You can't. There's no communication. They don't even aware that you're there because it has no intelligence. Supposedly replaying energy, possibly. Intelligent hauntings are much easier to interact with because they have intelligence. You can test things, you can communicate, you can get answers to things. So without a doubt, I mean, anytime activity is happening, we'll first determine if it's intelligent. If it is, we'll pursue it. If it's not, then there's nothing much you can do anyway. It's going to appear and disappear when it happens under what variables there are. It's only in the case of an intelligence that you can even interact with.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I had a guest last season that actually made the point that she believes, in her opinion, that the intelligent hauntings actually might be the most common haunting because we can communicate with them, so we know they're there. If it's a residual, we know it could be really anything. So at least with intelligent, so I thought that was a good point. I've actually been investigating it that way. So the next kind of haunting is a evil haunting, not demonic. Those are two different things. So just yeah.
Well, I mean, again, English language defines terminology for us to understand things. So the term evil, I mean, evil to one person may not be evil to another. I mean, are we talking, I mean, I know human beings that at times seem evil. So, you know, if you're defining something as evil, would be like me saying, well, you know, what's this? It's a fist. Okay, where'd it go? You know, fist. If is a fist a thing, where'd it go? It's gone. The fist is gone. Because it's not a thing, it's an action. So to define something as evil, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're, you know, have we run into situations like that? Of course we have. But, you know, you can be standing on a street corner and ask 10 random people that walk by, hey, can I ask you a question? Some people are going to say, yeah, absolutely, ask away. And then you're going to have others who are going to get away from me. Don't bother me, And so, is the spirit world any different than the way humans act here? Probably not.
One thing I always say, if somebody was an asshole when they were alive, they're going to be an asshole when they're dead.
True.
So the next kind is a poltergeist. What do you think about a poltergeist haunting?
Well, I mean, now you're talking about scientifically tested where things occur that obviously are outside of the norm, doors opening, slamming, things moving. I have not experienced one personally, but I think it'd be a real learning experience. And if I knew of one and could experience it, I'd probably be one of the first signs up.
Okay, how about a demonic haunting?
Again, we're in the terms. Do we know anything? I mean, you can take everything from religious aspects of what demonic is to, YouTube aspects of what demonic is. In 15 years of investigation, and we've had houses have to be exorcised. But would I say that those experiences were demonic? No. Was it ugly? Yeah. Was it demonic? If I would say probably not. And it's not something in 15 years of investigating all through the United States, Japan, the Philippines, never ran into anything I would call demonic.
All right, so here's my take on demonic hauntings. So, first of all, I am an educated investigator. As we've already discussed, I was born with my abilities, my talent, whatever term you want to use. But so when I made the decision at 14, I had he was my great uncle, but he was like a second grandfather to me because he would go anytime we went out to eat with my grandparents, he was there, blah, blah, blah. So when he passed away, he came to me and told me he had passed. And at that point, I'm kind of making this a short story, but because most of my viewers have heard it. But so that was the point when I decided I either had to learn to use my abilities or be afraid of it for the rest of my life. Well, I'm sure you can look at me and tell that I'm not the kind of guy that's afraid of much. I have my state championship football ring. I was in the Army. I was a pro MMA fighter. So I don't scare. So I decided, if I was going to do it, I was going to learn as much as I could. So I actually have a degree in parapsychology from West Georgia University. I actually have a Bible degree from Louisville Bible College, so I can argue that part with anybody. I'm trained. I took demonology class from Bishop Long, so I'm an educated investigator. So in my 33 years of investigating, have I ever investigated a demonic case? I would say no. The closest I came when I was doing my pro MMA stuff, I lived in Indiana. I lived across the bridge from Louisville, as they like to call it, the sunny side of Louisville. I lived on that side because rent was a lot cheaper than it was in Louisville. So I fought out of Louisville. I fought for the Bluegrass Mafia Fight Club. That's who I fought for. So, but I lived in Indiana. So we got a phone call to come investigate this location. First thing I would like to say, this location was probably still too fresh, too new, whatever term you want to use, to investigate. We probably should have waited at least a year, but we got a phone call from the in-laws, and they're like, can you investigate this place? Their daughter was murdered. It was a murder-suicide. So even in the police report, the husband had lost his job, fell into depression, was drinking, decided to start dabbling in devil worship. That was even in the police report. So blah blah blah. So we decided we're going to try to help this family. So we hid there. Well, the first thing I want to say is traveling to this house. It was like a Stephen King movie. The first thing we had to do, I'm sure you've heard about the Crying Baby Bridge in Indiana, the bridge where the mother supposedly threw the baby over and she haunts. So we had to go underneath it. And then the house was 8 blocks. And when we got to the house, it was on a gravel road, and catty cornered from the house was this 1860 cemetery. So it was just like, so when we get to the house, the neighbors took the bulldozer and knocked the house down.
Wow.
For whatever reason, to try to get rid of the spirit. I don't know. So we had to actually enter the house from the attic window, and when we entered there, we was on the staircase. So we get there, and the police tape's still there, the blood stain's still there, blah blah blah. I don't say blah 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 to dismiss it, because this was probably the most heebie-jeebie, if that's the term you want to use. I don't think that's a scientific term, but this is the most heebie-jeebie case I've ever had. Like, especially being a sensitive or whatever term you want to give me. I was on high alert as soon as we pulled into the driveway. So we go to the kids' room, and it's what you expect. The guy killed the kids in their bed. So the blood stain and all that stuff. So right. we get to the master bedroom. We get to the master bedroom, which is where he killed the wife and himself. And you find his journal, and there's notes about trying to worship the devil. I won't even say he was doing it properly, trying to. So then we noticed there was a place in the closet that looked like the carpet had been pulled up. So we what it was is somebody took a box cutter and cut a perfect square in the carpet and the pad. So when we peeled it back, there was a pentagon where the guy tried to draw a pentagon in the floor. And so it was very creepy, lots of stuff. And even with that, I won't say that was demonic. I would say there was a lot of negative activity, but I won't say it was actually truly demonic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
All right. So the last speed round we got is we're going to discuss different kinds of locations to investigate, and just give us your feeling about investigating those locations. So let's start out with cemeteries. How do you feel about investigating a cemetery?
Yeah, I mean, we've caught stuff in cemeteries. We've caught voices. I find it kind of strange, though, that, if you could travel anywhere, that you'd hang around a flat piece of earth with headstones where your body's buried. Have we caught stuff? Yeah, we've caught EVPs. But the thing about EVPs is I think because we noticed with Staticom, they can be caught anywhere, and we never consider a place haunted based on getting voices, because that doesn't mean they're at that location. So, but cemeteries we've done before, and they, depending on how old it is, it can be fun.
So my opinion on cemeteries is kind of different than most people in the field. I'm not against investigating cemeteries. Matter of fact, I got 2 members of my team. If we don't have an investigation, they pretty well go out every weekend into a cemetery. Luckily, we don't have that many free weekends because we do at least 2 investigations a month. But so to me, cemeteries, like you said, you might catch voices, but voices can be anywhere. To me, a cemetery, there's no real reason for the spirits to be there. They didn't live there. They didn't die there. So, right. There's really no reason for them to be there. Now, with that being said, we have a cemetery here locally that we investigate. We go there like at least once a year. But before it was a cemetery, it was a basic training camp for the Confederacy. And 200 of the soldiers died of smallpox, malaria, and etc. before they went to battle. So there was already reason for it to be active. And then back in the 1890 to 1910 era, there was a witch that was buried there. And for the people who don't know much about history of cemeteries and witches, back in that era when they buried a witch, they did one or two things to keep the witch from coming back. They would either put a fence around it or they would put a log chain over it. Well, this grave actually used to have a log chain over it. So was she a witch? No, she was a Native American medicine woman. But in the 1890s in Western Kentucky, if you wasn't a Christian, you were a witch. So, so that part we can that part we can verify. Now, the legend goes even further and says that she was hung in the tree on the edge of the cemetery. That part can't be verified. And and I'm a researcher and a historian, so I like the facts. So since I can't prove that, that never goes into my investigation. So that's my take on cemeteries. So so how do you feel about investigating a school?
We've investigated quite a few of them. We're doing another one coming up here a couple of weeks. There can be good activity in the school depending on how it was run, what happened. The last one I was in was the Farrar School, actually with Sam and Colby. So there was stuff caught in there too. Schools can be quite productive.
So I want to investigate my old high school. So I graduated from Heath High School. So for the people who don't know the history, Heath High School was the first high school shooting that kicked off all the other ones. So you had Heath, and then you had Columbine. So Heath was first. It was in '97. So I think the history of that would be a good investigation, especially with my tie to it too. Because like I said, I won a state football championship there, and I graduated there. So I think combined all that, I think that would be a really good investigation. So, how about a hospital? How do you feel about investigating a hospital?
Well, we ran the old Phelps Dodge Hospital, which Ghost Adventures were at, Destination Fear, for 4 years. Caught one of our best shadow figures ever at that location.
So we train. So like we discussed, I have a large team. So obviously we got to train them. Like I said, you can't just come to me and say, "Kid, I want to join Ken 10 Paranormal." It don't work that way. We have an orientation you got to go through, and then we have a training. We actually have a trainer on our team, and then we go to this place in Cairo, Illinois, which is one of my hometowns. I don't know what you know about Cairo, but Cairo is a true ghost town. It was supposed to be a big town. It was supposed to be bigger than Paducah. Paducah is the biggest town around here. Paducah, Kentucky is our biggest town. Cairo is supposed to be bigger than that. It's actually sit right on the river. It was actually General Grant's headquarters during the Civil War. He actually stayed there twice when he was president. I mean, it was supposed to be a big deal. It was destroyed. It was destroyed by racial riots. And unlike some towns that rebounded from it, Cairo never rebounded. Cairo's population nowadays is like 2,000 people.
Wow.
But anyway, so there's a hospital there. It's an abandoned hospital. It's been abandoned since 1988. That's where we do our training there. My uncle was actually mayor of Cairo, so I have a lot of connections where I can get into these places. So we got some of the best evidence several times there. Me personally, some of the best evidence. I got the best, thermal camera evidence I've ever got there. We were on the third floor, which the third floor is an interesting floor anyway, because the south side or the west side, whichever way you want to put it, was the hospice ward. Because back in those days, the hospice was in the hospital. They didn't send you home like they do nowadays. Then so the west side was the hospice ward, the center was the maternity ward, and then the north side was the psychiatric ward. So this was an interesting combination. So
Sure.
we were in the we were investigating the psychiatric ward part, and we during this investigation we actually had another team with us. We had JB Coates. I don't know if you know JB, but JB's a pretty well known. She's an author and all that stuff. So JB's big thing is she likes to go live. So I wasn't really enjoying this investigation because I was having to play tour guide, and I'm an investigator, so I like to investigate. But I was having to play tour guide for this one, so I was showing I was showing JB and all them out, and JB went live, and if she went live, I got a big scratch across my face live on camera. So that was the first thing that was interesting on this. So then after we left, that happened in the showers with like the doctors and the nurses would shower the lockers, all that stuff. So then as we were leaving the floor, the only people that was left on the floor was me and my team, and Dennis, who's one of my team leads, and his wife Denise is on our team. So we were the only 3 people on that floor. And I decided to take a picture with my thermal camera. I personally love the thermal camera because you really can't fake a thermal camera. You either get something or you don't.
Correct.
So I decided to take a picture with my thermal camera, and like I said, we're the only 3 on this floor. So I take a picture with the thermal camera, and I get the heat signature of Dennis, Denise, and then there's a 6'4" human shaped heat signature between them.
Wow.
And we're the only 3 on the. So that's the best. So yeah, I'm a fan of hospitals, and on that same investigation, but same location, a different investigation. For some reason, the hospital always likes to flood the basement, which is where the body chute and the morgue is. Always likes to flood. Of course,
Right.
Carroll's right on the Mississippi and Ohio River. They actually meet there, so it always floods. So we're doing our usual thing on the EMF. I have a millimeter, so it's a high speed EMF reader. So on the millimeter, for some reason that day we were getting measurements. I actually got 108.3,
Wow.
which is unreal. Yeah, and you have to remember. The hospital has been abandoned since 1988, so it's completely gutted. No wires, no break, nothing. So that high with nothing to set it off makes, and then it looked like it was foreigners because as we walked, we'd get a 108, then we'd get a 55, and so we asked it if it was foreigners, and it said yes. And but it basically ended up telling us it was trying to trap us in the basement.
Yeah.
So, yes, I like hospitals. So how about asylums? How do you feel about investigating an asylum?
Yeah, they're similar along the same lines as hospitals. Similar activity. They're good.
New WWE TV show. It's about a new WWE TV show.
Yeah, asylums, they're not much different. The only thing I think people need to realize about asylums, especially if you talk about like Pinhurst and some of the big ones, people always like, oh, I got grabbed. That must be an evil spirit. Not necessarily. What people have to realize is a lot of the patients at asylums lack verbal skills. So they may just be grabbing you to get your attention. So,
True. They're very true. Yeah.
how about a prison or a jail?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of activity there as well. Done money jails in the past. Yeah, they can be both very active and sometimes very scary, but great places to investigate as well.
Yeah, sometimes what I've always found surprising and interesting, a lot of times, especially in a prison, not so much a jail, just because they don't usually have them, but a lot of the prisons I've went to, one of the most active places is usually like the mess hall. Everybody would assume it would be like death row and stuff, but Yeah, but like a reformatory or like the dining hall has always been active. But I guess that's about all I got on those 2 rounds. So just just let everybody know what you got going on right now, Tony.
Sure.
What they need to do to keep up with the latest on the Statacom 3, how to get a hold of you, just that kind of stuff.
Yep. You can go to our website, entityvoices.com. There's all sorts of information on there. A lot of it now today is focused on Statacom since the upgrade. If you go to YouTube and search Statacom, you'll find the page. There's, I don't know how many, a lot, maybe 150 clips of captures from Statacom, including 3.0. Otherwise, Facebook, if you search Statacom or Tony Rathman, you'll find lots of information on where we're at, where we're giving presentations, clips, all sorts of other fun stuff. So those are the easiest places to find.
All right. Final question, just because this is one that I used to always ask for season 1, and I still like it. It's just a fun question. Tell us what the favorite location you've been to, and tell us what it would be your bucket list location.
My favorite location was Baguio City, the Diplomat Hotel in the Philippines. By far the most active, craziest spot we've ever been. I want to go to the Haunted Forest in Japan is my bucket list place.
That would be interesting. All right, Tony, thank you for coming on, and we will talk to you later.
All right, have a great night.
Now you gotta hit that